Okay, so I want to go back to the comment you made about and I guess you can explain this in terms of just kind of the European rules in general. But you said you did not count as an American on their roster. Explain the rules of I guess nationalities on a roster breakdown. Are there certain numbers that have to be allotted to certain countries?
Yeah, so it varies between countries. So in Sweden, the rule is that you're allowed to have two American imports.
Okay,
And that's it. You can only have two on your roster. And so the good thing about me was I didn't count, even though I was American and I'd lived here
right,
my almost my entire life. I didn't count, so they could bring me and then also two more Americans.
right.
So that's where they kind of found a loophole. But then you have like where I'm at right now. I'm in Poland. I count right now as an American import because of their rules. They're different.
Yeah,
So you have to have a Polish citizenship. It's not just European.
gotcha.
Right.
But there's different rules out here depending on which country you're going to go to. I know Germany's got different rules, and that's kind of where like the powerhouse football is out here in
Right.
Europe.
Right.
And I'm not 100% sure what the rules are, but I know you can have. I think you can have like three or four American imports on the field at a time, or I'm not 100% sure, but there's different rules depends on which country you're at.
Hmm. And I would imagine those rules are so that the game develops over there. Otherwise, these teams would bring in 20, 25 Americans because the sport is so much more advanced here.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
They're trying to build it inside the country, like you
Right.
said. It'd be a good show, if you brought over that many Americans, but then at the end of the day, you're not really getting your own into the sport.
Right.
They're just, getting their spots taken by Americans. So, in a sense, I understand the rule 100%. Um, but that's how it is.
What have you found? Now, how many years have you been playing in Europe?
My first season was 2012. So I
Okay.
played in Sweden from 2012 until 2018. So this is
Okay.
my first year outside of Sweden.
Okay. So you've played over there for quite some time then. So
Hmm.
how is the game? How did you find the game when you went over there compared to the American game?
It's funny. I remember my first game because I was playing my first game here in Sweden in, I believe, January, February, March, April, maybe the end of May, we'll say. But at that point, I hadn't played in a football game since state 2009. So I hadn't played a football game in 3 years.
Huh.
So my nerves going into that game were off the charts. But then we started playing a little bit, and then I got to, I started to realize that, it's not that big of a sport out here. I always like to use the comparison. It's like football and soccer in America, but you just flip it over
Yeah,
here.
right.
You have football. It's not that big. Soccer, it's huge over here. So it falls a little further down on the ladder over here. But that being said, I mean, the love for the game's there. Everybody who's on the team, they love it. They'll give their heart, blood, sweat, everything for the game. So the commitment's there, but just the skill level, it's not quite. It's not near what it is in America.
What would you compare? I mean, I know there's different levels over there. I'm not all that familiar with the game, but I know there's different tiers. Like you mentioned, Germany having a pretty strong American football contingent, and I know Italy's got some teams that are pretty strong, and they've got others that might be considered second tier or even third tier. So how would you compare it if you had to compare the football over there? Would you compare it to Division One AA here, Division Two? I mean, how would you compare it?
I feel like if you took the best team from Europe, I think they might be able to. They play an annual game. Sorry, against a D3 college. They always
Okay.
bring one over, and
Okay.
it's always a pretty close game. But the team from Europe normally wins.
Okay.
They might be able to stand their own against a lower tier D2 team.
Okay.
Um, but as far as Sweden and Poland, where I'm at right now, maybe a low D3 school.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to say high school. That wouldn't be a good game. But
Right.
like a lower than average D3 school, I think would be probably the best comparison.
right.
Okay. Okay.
So how about kind of the reception of the sport there by the fans? I mean, I know you kind of compared it to soccer in our country, but there's certainly pockets of the United States that has big time soccer fans. Just kind of in general, being around the cities you go to, what's the reaction from the citizens or fans of the sport that you've seen?
I mean, every team I've been on, we've had our loyal set of fans, but the sad part is it's just not as big as we're used to in the States.
Right.
I think an average game we might have 1,000 on a good game in the crowd watching. But that's if you have perfect weather, the sun's out, rainy games, you might get maybe 400.
Right.
So
right.
It's a pretty big drop off as far as attendance.
Right.
But
I get
the people who are the people who are involved in the team. I mean, they love it. They tailgate, all the same stuff you do back home.
Yeah.
It's just not the quantity that we're used
Right.
to.
I guess I also just meant kind of in general the kind of the public's reaction to the sport of football. Like, do they watch NFL games? Do they know, are they knowledgeable about the sport? It's not just necessarily the fans that come to the games.
It's really hard to be an NFL fan over here because the early games start at about 7 o'clock at night.
Right.
So if you're a true fan and you want to stay up for those games, you're going to be up until about 4 o'clock in the morning watching. If you're watching the Monday night football game, and a lot of people got to work, so they don't really do it. But I mean, I'm not really sure how to compare it. It's not that big, actually. You're not going to go to the store and find, football hats or football jerseys. You can barely find football cleats out here. You have to wear soccer cleats if you don't order from the States.
Right.
So I want to say it's a growing sport. Since I've been here for the last 6-7 years, it's definitely been growing, but it's still not where I'd like it to be, at least.
Right.